Welcome back to the BTB Show, everyone. Today, it is myself, Max, and Earl. We got a little duo running, a little Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic duo, here to talk about the 65 games rule that the NBA has had for the last couple of years when it comes to eligibility for MVP, for Defensive Player of the Year, for All-NBA, all the major end-of-season awards we all know and love. The Players Association does not like this rule. They've decided that they are officially asking the NBA to get rid of this rule. Now, will the league totally get rid of it? Will they just lower the games played? Will they change the criteria for like how many minutes you need to play in a game? I don't know. But Earl, what's your initial reaction to this? Are you pro the 65 games rule? Do you want it lowered or do you want it just completely eradicated? You are muted, in fact.
Let me start over. I think there's a decent middle ground throughout this whole entire situation of the 65 game rule. Part of me sees like where the fans are like, oh, you guys are athletes. You guys are getting paid millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to play basketball. Just go out there and play your job. If you can't meet the 80% requirement to do your job, why should you get rewarded for it? On the other hand, there's a conversation of body and health. Like these athletes are actively putting their body on the line on the court and off the court. People don't realize the training it takes to sustain this level of play and even just activate your muscles to get ready for game days. And not to count the back-to-back days where you're playing one game, you barely have time to recover, you go out there the next day. Some of these situations are East to West Coast trips as well. So you're getting on a plane, you play at, maybe you have like an 8 o'clock start game, ends at like maybe latest 12 after you get out of all media and everything like that. You hop on a plane, you have to get straight off the plane, go to the hotel, go straight to practice. You probably got like an hour or two to kind of relax. Go back to warm-ups to activate your body and go out there and play another game. Like it's taxing to your body. And the human body isn't sustained to take that much of a physical limit. So that part I understand as well. Like realistically, we're at the age of the NBA where injuries are frequent. They're happening a lot more often than we've seen really in the history of the game. How many Achilles injuries or anything in that range of motion did we have last year with
A lot.
players? Some of them coming back. I mean, we have obviously a couple came back this year. Shout out to Tatum. He looks solid. Not where he was before, but that's my point as well.
Shout out to
We're
Jonte.
kind of in a way, yeah, shout out to, oh yeah, Jonte as well. It took him like almost a whole year, correct? To come back.
I think a little
Almost
bit
the
less.
end
I
of
think
the
it was like
season.
10 and a half months, 11 months. But
Yeah,
like, yeah,
like so
pretty much a year.
it took quite a while, but so my point to this is like at what point do we kind of put a middle ground? My change of heart was last night. I watched the game last night. I don't think Donovan Mitchell. He had an absolute banger of a game. But I turned on the press conference and I swear I had to do a double take. I look at the camera. Donovan Mitchell, one of Donovan Mitchell's eyes is literally completely red, bloodshot red. Every angle you turn at, it's just bloodshot red. And then they're asking him about the 65 game rule. He said, look, I understand like we're athletes. Obviously, like it's in our contract, we're required to play. But accidents happen. Like for instance, Kate Cunningham, that's not something you
Yeah.
can prepare for, right? And then you get punished after you have an amazing season. And you're not qualified for any All NBA awards, potentially. You're not qualified for, like Max said, MVP. He was kind of in the running. Maybe he wasn't the favorite, but he was up there. Number one team in the Eastern Conference, sustaining a pretty good two-way player, both ends of the floor. That's something everyone's looking for in the MVP candidate. And now it's kind of just crushed away because of a 65 game rule. To me personally, I think Max brought up a great point when we were talking individually about this situation. It's not like voters are going to vote you in at MVP if you play like 25 games, right? There's some
Yeah,
type of
exactly.
logic between it. So maybe you don't need like the base number 65. Maybe it's more so like you fill out the situation, you see how they played throughout the season when they were playing at the dominant level.
Yeah, I personally am not a fan of just having any sort of rule because when you have something like this, when you
Yeah.
draw the line in the sand, you're always going to have, in terms of like eligibility, you're always going to have players that should be in the running that aren't because they missed by a game or two, like Cade might this year, or like Wemby or
Yep.
Jokic might. Or then you're always
Yep.
going to have guys who maybe become in the running, even though they should be like in the bottom half of the top 10 of like a voting like
Yep.
MVP or Defensive Player of the Year. But just because they met the 65 games rule, all of a sudden now they're a contender. And you might have guys making an All NBA third team who probably shouldn't be there. So I know that they've talked about could it go to 50, could it go to 55? We're going to have the same problem no matter where we draw that line. It's always going to be under scrutiny. It's always going to be
Yep.
debated. So I think we just go back to what we had before, and I'm not even really sure. I don't really remember. Was there any like instance that made this rule
Oh,
come up? Like, why did we ever institute the rule in the first place? Was
I
there like
can't.
a year
I
where
can't
a
remember.
player didn't play many games but still won a major award and people were mad about that? Like,
I don't even remember when this rule got in place. Like, it was modern era NBA or was it back in the day? I have no clue. But
it's
I'm
only
assuming
been
it had to
like
be
this for a
recent,
few
right?
years. It's been like 3 or 4 years. It's
So you're
very
telling me it's Adam Silver?
Oh, it's 100%. Like this is like a recent Adam Silver thing. Like I think this is like probably about as old as like the play-in tournament or something. Like it could even be like 2 or 3 years ago. Like it doesn't. It has not been that long. I just don't know why we ever needed it in the first place. Because
Yeah.
I mean, people always bring up these stats about like, oh, the NBA's only ever had 2 or 3 MVPs that have won the award with fewer than 60 games played, and they use that as a justification for the 65 games rule of saying like, hey, we never had, MVPs have never won unless you play this number of games. Okay, but you could
Oh
also look at
wow.
that and use the logic of, well, if that's always been the case, then why did we need the rule in the first place? If there was never a problem that needs to be solved, the rule theoretically isn't changing anything. So I personally feel like you just get rid of the rules and you take it on a case by case basis. Well, it seems like you
Max,
found
guess what?
something.
Apparently, the rule, if I'm reading this correctly, was implemented before the 2023-24 season after negotiation between the NBA owners and NBPA. So basically, when they had the
Yeah,
league
like
collective
it was
bargaining
super
agreement,
recent.
it was very recent. And I think it's one of those situations where players, like, don't get me wrong. I think obviously we know the power control between players and owners. Obviously, players have a lot of control in this type of league compared to other leagues. But at the same time, owners do have a big stake in what happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one of those things where it's like, okay, we're giving you guys all this, so give us this back. Like the 65 game rule.
Yeah,
I
this
think it's
seems
one of
like
those
something
things they just agreed to.
the owners probably wanted this. Now that you
Yeah.
say that, it was probably the owners wanting it to make their players
Hmm.
play more.
For sure.
And so they could feel like, it motivates their players. Or maybe it's just a higher threshold because remember, nowadays, all NBA appearances or like all star
Yep.
appearances or like end of season awards, like that's contract incentives for players. Like that's
Yes.
worth 5, 6, $10 million in some cases.
And
So maybe by the owners saying we need
yeah.
this minimum games rule, that's a way to kind of look around this and be like, well, all of a sudden, maybe now I don't have to pay these players I'm already paying $250 million
True.
to. As long as they don't meet the 65 games rule, I don't have to pay them that extra incentive for an end of year award.
And to add on to that, Max, like I think it's okay to have incentive based things in contracts, but maybe not make it like league wide as far as like the 65 game rule. For example, everybody knows the Zion situation, right? First couple years in the league, very injury prone. So when he signed that new big deal, people forget there was a lot of stipends in that contract as far as like game completions, which we've seen obviously later into this season where some of his contract details start coming out. Like, hey, Zion just hit this mark. He was guaranteed an extra 15 million. Okay, Zion hit this next mark here. He was guaranteed an extra like 20 plus million over his full contract. So I think when you start breaking it down like that, I think it's fair to do that as far as on a person to person basis per contract. Because like you said, there's an obligation if you are healthy, you have to play for us or we lose money as a team. Like we lose viewership, we lose fans coming out to
Yeah.
games. Like it's really bad for the economic system in the NBA.
A contract's a contract, like straight up.
For sure. But there should be limitations for sure. Like I don't think I agree with you. I don't think this should have been here. It's never been there in the first place. So why start adding stuff like this now?
It was clear based on what you're saying. It seems like it was a bargaining chip for the owners. Like you said,
Hmm.
that's a way to maybe save a little bit of money, get something that they wanted. But I think we're already seeing, like in just what is this? I guess year 3 now of this.
Yep.
We're already seeing the massive flaws that it has. So I personally am a fan of it going away. Again, I don't think this is going to lead to undeserving guys winning awards. Like no one was going to be voting Giannis in the MVP this year, even though because he has 30 games played. If you want to ask about this, ask Joel Embiid how he lost Rookie of the Year to Malcolm Brogdon. Joel Embiid had a phenomenal rookie season, but he only played like 30 some odd games, and he lost to
Yeah.
Malcolm Brogdon, who like had a solid year, but he played twice as many games and like played pretty much the whole
Facts.
season. So the voters were like, as great as Embiid is, we're not going to just give him this award for playing less than half the season. So I think we trust the voters to do their due diligence and understand the nuance of a situation, and that sure, the more games you play, like each game you play makes your case a little bit stronger. But like if Victor Wembanyama plays 58 games in a season, but he is in those 58 games, the Spurs are 50-8. He's by far the best defensive player in the league. Like he's averaging 8 blocks a game and 4 steals. He should still win Defensive Player of the Year. Like
Yes,
understanding the nuance of the situations. But if it's a guy who's maybe like he's 50-50 for an all NBA second team or third team, you look at the games played and say, well, he only played, 55 games. So maybe that's enough to bump him from a second to a third. Or maybe it's enough to bump him from third to
for
no
sure.
team. I think you trust the voters to make those judgment calls. But on the topic of voters, I do agree with you. I personally think that the incentives, like I agree that incentives in a contract should be there, but I don't think the team should have incentives based on end of year awards that are voted on by other people. That's where it starts
I
to get
agree.
hairy because if you're doing things like, oh, this player, you play X amount of games, you get a bonus. If we make the playoffs and you average this amount in the playoffs, you get a bonus. If you make,
Yep.
things like that where it's more in the players or the team's control. But once you start letting millions of dollars being decided by voters who, let's be honest, some of them make questionable decisions sometimes. I don't know if they should be keeping guys
Mike
like Jalen.
Wilbon.
I think Jalen Brown had a controversy with this like last year or something where it was like he didn't make a team or he wasn't voted for something and he was like, this cost me a lot of money even though I should have been on there. So if we're gonna
Yep.
have incentives, I think it's got to be stuff that like player or team related, not award based when the awards are voted on by journalists or media members who have bias or maybe just aren't the most informed all the time. We'll say.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's our thoughts on the 65 game rule. Will it be changed? Will it stay the same? Will they just get rid of it entirely? Let us know what you're predicting in the comment section below. As always, keep an eye out for our content here on YouTube and on TikTok as well. We might be getting some fun little bits going up there, so keep an eye out for that. Appreciate all you guys for watching this video. I'm Max. This is the BTB Show. We are signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.